For those who live in Navy Yard, did you know you can order Walters online for pickup? Visit waltersdc.com, click on menus, and then push the order online button so it's ready when you get there to take back home with you.
Breaking ball hit through and past the diving first baseman Norby into right field. Garcia scores. Here comes House to the plate. The throw is cut off by Norby from the right fielder Owen Casey. It's a single to right and 2 more runs batted in now for the major league leader in runs batted in with 36. That's CJ Abrams. And it's now the Nationals 3 and the Marlins nothing, still with nobody out here in the top of the first inning.
Parker holds the set. The lefty kicks and fires. Swinging a fly ball, left center field deep. Lyle back to the warning track, to the wall, and this game is tied. It's gone.
Outfield playing him to pull around toward right. Here's the pitch. Line in the air to right field deep. Wood going back, way back, and it's gone. Goodbye into the Nationals bullpen. A 3-run home run for Jacob Marcy. Just not Mitchell Parker's day, is it? RBIs 11, 12, and 13, and the Marlins lead 7-4. And Peterson coming set to pitch. Swinging a ground ball right side and through a base hit right field. Millis scores. Wood around third coming home. Throw to the plate. Gets by Mack the catcher. Garcia around second will stay right there. Luis Garcia Jr. with his 3rd hit of the game, a single to right, scores 2, and he's the tying run at second base now with 1 out of the top of the 9th inning. It's the Marlins 8 and the Nationals 7. 1-0 record, 0.55 ERA delivers, and a swing and a fly ball, shallow right center field coming over. Marcy, the center fielder, he's there, and he makes the catch, and the game is over. The Marlins hold on and win it narrowly here in the 9th by a single run.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. My usual co-host, Nats insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He's off for this installment of the podcast, but I'm joined by the creator, the owner, the executive producer of the pod, the great Tim Shovers. You know, we on the last installment of the podcast had some fun with TGIF. Do you know what used to air after TGIF on ABC back in the day? A show called 2020. The Nats on Saturday had a chance to get to 20 and 20. They unfortunately did not get to 20 and 20. So unlike Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters, Tim and I cannot say this is 2020. That would have been so perfect for this installment of the podcast, but such is not the way things worked out. An 8-7 loss at the Miami Marlins on Saturday in Game 2 of a 3-game series. This was a game in which the Nats blew a 4-0 4th inning lead. This was a crazy game. The Nats scored the game's first 4 runs. The Marlins then scored the game's next 8 runs, and the Nats then scored the game's final 3 runs in a 3-run 9th that made the game awfully interesting. But the Nats did lose. They in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 19 and 21. This installment of Nats Chat is brought to us by the DC Grays annual fundraiser, a great event, Cigars and Curveballs, Monday, May 18th at Shelley's Backroom in downtown Washington, D.C. Tim, the theme for this game from a Nats perspective to me is that we in this game saw the best of the 2026 Nats and the worst of the 2026 Nats. We saw the best, more exceptional offense, including more first inning runs and more late inning runs, but we also saw the worst, more bad pitching, more bad defense, more bad base running. A frustrating game. 20 and 20 was right there. 500 was right there, but now the Nats are back to being 2 games below 500.
Nats fans, you should be aggravated at this one. This was a real missed opportunity. The Nats, they have a 4-run lead early on. They score 3 runs in the 9th inning. They get through opener / Littell by just giving up 3 runs, and they lose. That shouldn't happen, especially when they're not facing an elite opponent. This is a really frustrating one, which is a good thing. Like, Nats fans, you wanted them to get to 500. That's a good mental thing heading to the quarter pole of the season, and they blew it. So at least take solace in having the ability to be frustrated at what happened on Saturday's game. By the way, Al, when Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters came on screen as a kid, I can't tell you how quickly I turned the channel once TGIF was over. 2020, okay, that's for adults. All right, time to go to ESPN before we go to bed. But anyways, back to this game. And with it, not only, Al, did they lose this game, but you had, bad relief pitching by Mitchell Parker, a really bad line by him. You had a ridiculously unacceptable yet continuous error by CJ Abrams, which should not have happened and which was a costly run in the 6th inning. And then Joey Wiemer, which this wouldn't have mattered because of the way CJ Abrams got out the next at bat. But what Joey Wiemer comes off the bench and just terrible pinch running by him.
1 out, top of the 9th, tying run in scoring position. 8-7 Miami. Peterson sets. Marlins getting the bullpen busy. Pitch swung on it. Well, ground ball to third. Wiemer caught off second in a rundown. He avoids the tag. The flip to second, and now he's tagged out.
And that was a missed opportunity. Instead of the Nats having a runner in scoring position with 2 outs, they then had to have a runner at first, change the dynamic of the inning. So you add all that up, and this was a tough one to swallow.
It totally is. And, you know, you look at where we are now, right? 19-21, 40 games into the 162 game regular season. So tracking towards 76 wins if you just multiply the 19 by 4. And I think most Nats fans would have signed up for that. I know I would have signed up for that, but it is a sign of things being better than we anticipated, that we can have a game like this and be frustrated and be upset and say, hey, this team should be 500. 100% this team should be 500. You're up 4-0 at a bad team in the Marlins. And look, the Nats are not world beaters, understood, okay? But you're up 4-0 in the 4th inning. Things are looking pretty good, if not very good. You end up scoring 7 runs, and that ends up not being enough to win the game. So with what happened in the top of the 9th, the Nats in the top of the 9th were in business. This was looking like an improbable come from behind win, or at least a game that the Nats improbably tie in the 9th, and we go to extra innings. But the Nats in the top of the 9th, leadoff double by Jose Tena, RBI single by Drew Millis, 1 out double by James Wood, 1 out 2-run single by Luis Garcia Jr. And then we get Joey Wiemer getting caught in a rundown between second base and third base. And it's being too dramatic to say that this cost the Nats the game, but man, this was a bad out, and man, this brought to a screeching halt the Nats' momentum in this inning. So Wiemer was pinch running for Luis Garcia Jr. at second base, inexplicably got caught in a rundown between second base and third base and was called out for the second out. Nats manager Blake Butera, during his post-game session with reporters, didn't hold back, said, Wiemer was being overly aggressive. Clearly that was the case.
I think he was just trying to make an aggressive play there. It was a little bit over aggressive. I know he really wanted to get to third base there, and
was brought in to pinch run, and he did the thing that a pinch runner should never do, get caught in a rundown in that spot. The Nats for this game, 7 runs, 11 hits, which were a home run, a triple, 4 doubles, and 5 singles, 2 walks, 3 for 8 with runners in scoring position. I mean, the offense ended up being more than good enough to win. James Wood, he is the Nats starting right fielder and number 1 batter, 2 for 3, solo homer, double, and a walk. Also got credited with an outfield assist. And yes, I did say homer. The James Wood 13-game homerless drought is over. He and the Nats 3-run first had a leadoff full count homer to the second deck in right center field for a 1-0 Nats lead, despite having been down at 1.12. The homer went a projected 442 feet per Statcast. His first homer since he homered in each of 3 consecutive games, April 21st through the 23rd. Also, CJ Abrams, and we'll get to the air, but Abrams as the Nats starting shortstop and number 4 batter, 2 for 5, triple, 2-run single. He and the Nats 3-run first had a 2-run single through the right side of the infield to put the Nats up 3-0, though he did get thrown out in an attempted steal of second base. And I mentioned Luis Garcia Jr., so he started a game for the first time since missing 3 consecutive games due to right wrist soreness, and he was impactful. He is the Nats starting first baseman and number 2 batter, 3 for 5 with a 2-run single and 2 other singles. We are taping this installment in the early evening hours on Saturday. The Nats, as we are recording this, Tim, are tied with the Chicago Cubs for number 1 in MLB in runs with 215. So I don't want to lose sight of this. It is shocking that the Nats offense has been as good as it has been, and that is a total credit to the organization and to the players. The offense in this game should have been good enough to win, and ultimately that was not the case.
Yeah, Wood homers right away. They go up 3-0, handing the ball off to Lovelady, which A bit of a surprise to see Richard Lovelady as a starter in a Major League Baseball game, but we get it. Opener, he did his job. And, that top of the first was so clutch. The Nats have 2 star hitters, and their star hitters came through right away with a non-elite pitcher coming up on the mound as the bulk starter and Littell. So that was such an important top of the first. And Al, I am stunned to hear you say that stat where they're tied with the Cubs. But I've been getting texts from friends who don't live in the market mentioning the Nats offense and, how much better it's been. It's like, oh, wait, you sort of, when you're in it every day, you forget the outside perspectives, and people are noticing outside of DC, like, hey, the Nats are putting up some runs, but today they did not take advantage of it.
Also, as we are recording this, the Nats are number 1 in MLB in first inning runs, 39, and number 1 in MLB in runs scored in 7th innings or later, 81. So it continues to be the case that this team has been awesome in first innings and awesome 7th inning on in games. Again, we don't want to lose sight of this. You can get caught up in the minutia of a singular game, and that's fine. That's understandable, and we're doing that. But there's a bigger picture here that has to be appreciated. This offense has been stunningly great. And those 2 words matter, the great, but also the stunningly, because nobody anticipated this. And if I would have told you Dylan Cruz, AAA Rochester, Robert Hassel III, AAA Rochester, Harry Ford, AAA Rochester, Brady House overall, not doing so well, Dalen Lyle overall, not doing so well, Keibert Ruiz having another bad offensive season, you would have said, okay, there's no way the offense is good. And yet here we are. The offense is really good.
Come support the DC Grays on Monday, May 18th at the annual Cigars and Curveballs fundraiser at 6 p.m. hosted by Tom Lavero. Come hang out with fellow local baseball fans and feel free to participate in the not-so-silent auction and hear more about the 2026 DC Grays summer season in the Cal Ripken Senior Collegiate Baseball League. The DC Grays proudly promote participation of intercity baseball with no registration fee for teams from underserved neighborhoods. Cigars and Curveballs is held at Shelley's Back Room in downtown DC, right near Metro Center at 1331 F Street. Shelley's is the best cigar bar in DC. The players on the DC Grays are college players from across the country. There will be information on how to become a host family at this event. To pre-register, visit dcgrays.com/cigars or show up on the fly on Monday night, May 18th at Shelley's at 6 p.m.
Littell with a 2-2. Swinging a ground ball rolled softly to short. Abrams in and to his right. He has it. He fires to first. Low, and Garcia can't pick it up. And it's backed up by Millis. So Abrams' throw tailed down and away, and Garcia attempted the forehand pickup on a bounce, keeping his foot on the bag, and he was unable to scoop it out.
The Nats are displaying a sloppiness in the field that is troublesome. There's no doubt about this. And we had more defensive sloppiness for the Nats in this game. So let's get into the Nats pitching in this game, and that'll end up including some of the defensive miscues here. So the Nats in this game used an opener, as Tim mentioned. The opener was reliever Richard Lovelady, marking the first time this regular season that someone other than PJ Poulin was used as an opener. And right away, we can talk some Nats defense. What happened with PJ Poulin in the previous game? Well, he pitched. Why did he pitch? Because CJ Abrams in the Nats 3-2 win at the Marlins on Friday night committed a throwing error on a routine grounder with 2 outs in the bottom of the 9th, prompting manager Blake Butera to pull reliever Brad Lord and put Poulin into the game. Poulin faced 2 batters, got 1 out for the save. To the first batter he faced, issued a 2-out walk, but then induced a ground out to end the game. But I noted this on the last installment of the podcast. That was a careless error by CJ Abrams, and it should have never been the case that Poulin had to come into that game on Friday night. Brad Lord should have closed out the game, should have gotten the save. Instead, Butera felt compelled to make the pitching change after the Abrams error. So Poulin doesn't open on Saturday. We get Richard Lovelady opening. He ends up doing a good job. 2 scoreless innings, 3 strikeouts. He tossed a scoreless bottom of the first despite issuing a 2-out walk and giving up a 2-out double. He tossed a perfect bottom of the second with 2 swinging strikeouts. And then starting pitcher Zack Littell came into the game as the Nats bulk man. He allowed 3 runs, 2 earned in 4 innings. He gave up 5 hits, which were a home run, 2 doubles, and 2 singles. He issued a walk. He recorded no strikeouts as Zack Littell continues to be like immune to striking guys out. He committed a fielding error. The Nats had not one but two errors in this game as Nats pitchers continued to really struggle defensively. Littell, his error came via him botching the fielding of a one-out tapper by Xavier Edwards in the bottom of the fifth. Littell in the bottom of the fourth gave up a one-out full count two-run homer by Kyle Stowers to right field to cut the Nats lead to 3-2. And Littell in the bottom of the sixth allowed an unearned run via a one-out throwing error by shortstop CJ Abrams. Another error by Abrams. He botched the throw off fielding a routine grounder by Connor Norby, who then stole second base and third base and scored on a sacrifice fly. So two more errors for the Nats in this game. The Nats for this regular season now have 38 errors. The next highest total as of games through Friday was 28 for the Tampa Bay Rays. Now we'll see what the error totals end up being at the end of games on Saturday. But the distance between the Nats and the next worst team in terms of errors is quite sizable. Every game, it feels like there is at least one notable defensive miscue, if not more, by this team. And, as we know, errors are not the best way to judge defense. If you go by the advanced stats, the Nats are not doing well defensively. The defense is a real problem here, and it popped up again. And Abrams' defense specifically, yet again, is a problem. We thought for a while he was doing a little bit better defensively. The numbers don't back that up, and just the eye test doesn't back that up. It feels like so often now he's guilty of some defensive wrongdoing. He's having a really good offensive season, but defensively, he is not doing well, and it more and more is looking like long-term, at least to me, this guy's not a shortstop, and he shouldn't be playing shortstop.
I'm with you. He's not a shortstop. I don't know where you put him, and we still haven't figured that out, and no executive in baseball has figured that out. I think he did a great job there in bridging together the error on Friday night and how it affected the game plan for Saturday, because you would have to imagine that Poulin would have started, even though Lovelady got the job done in 2 innings. With Abrams now, he is right up there with some of the most errors in baseball, as is House. Like, the Nats seems like they have the worst defensive left side of the infield in Major League Baseball. You're not going to win that way, and we know that. And everyone knows that the defense has to get better, and it's easier said than done, but it's not happening. And it's hard to imagine that Abrams is going to snap into it. It seems like this is who he is for whatever reason. And man, was that error in the 6th inning costly. Littell should have gotten out of that no problem. It should have been 4-2, and then 3 innings where the Nats bullpen has a multi-run advantage. And instead, because of that, it threw off the whole inning, and it made Littell's outing much, much inferior. And so it's just, this is going to keep happening. The Nats are going to lose games that they shouldn't lose if they're going to have careless defensive mistakes like this from Abrams and crew.
Abrams came into Saturday tied for the 3rd worst outs above average in MLB at -5. By the way, the 2nd worst, Bryce Harper at -6. But this is another rough defensive season, at least so far, for CJ Abrams. And again, I want to emphasize this. He's doing so well offensively. And like, that should not be overlooked. He's killing it offensively. He's been magnificent offensively. But the defense remains an issue. And I agree. Like, at this point, you don't look at CJ Abrams and say, well, he's a young up-and-comer, and you got to give him some time to develop defensively at shortstop. Like, numerically speaking, he's still young, mid-20s, but he's been in the majors long enough to where, he kind of is what he is at this point defensively at shortstop. And, he's athletic enough to where you'd like to think if you moved him to second base, he could be better defensively at second base. No guarantee of something like that. But the defense at shortstop, a premium defensive position, just has not been good. And the sample size now is over multiple seasons of the defense not being good. And it's a shame because, again, the offense has been so good. And, just with this defense overall, you mentioned House. House has struggled defensively here lately. We like a lot of what we see with James Wood defensively. His advanced defensive metrics, at least so far, are not particularly good. This once again is looking like a Nats team that defensively, has problems. And that has been the case for years. I mentioned the situation with the pitchers. You don't often think of pitching in terms of defense, but Nats pitchers, it feels like so many errors with Nats pitchers this season. We had another one in this game on Saturday. Speaking of Nats pitching, beyond what we saw with the opener and with the bulk man, so two other Nats pitchers got used in this game. Mitchell Parker, so we had sung his praises recently that he was looking pretty good as a reliever, and he was. We didn't imagine that. He was looking pretty good as a reliever. Parker in this game got shellacked. He officially allowed 5 runs in 1 inning. He gave up 5 hits, which were 2 home runs, 2 doubles into single. He issued a walk into wild pitch. He recorded 1 strikeout. Parker in the bottom of the 7th gave up a 2-out full count solo homer by Xavier Edwards to left center to tie the game at 4. The homer winner projected 422 feet per Statcast, and Parker in the bottom of the 8th gave up a 3-run homer by Jacob Marcy to right field for a 7-4 Marlins lead. Zach Kent officially tossed a scoreless inning, did allow an inherited runner to score, but the Marlins in this game, 2 runs bottom of the 4th, run bottom of the 6th, run bottom of the 7th, 4 runs in the bottom of the 8th. Mitchell Parker officially 5 runs in 1 inning. And, when we talk about Parker looking pretty good as a reliever, and again, his ERA now is 5.82. So, you can look however you want to look. His ERA is 5.82, 17 innings, 11 earned runs. The whip is at 124. Really disappointing outing for Mitchell Parker.
How bad was Mitchell Parker's outing? His ERA started with a 3 when he woke up on Saturday morning, and he'll go to bed with it in the high 5s, not just in the 5, the high 5. So that's how rough it was. I'm trying to come around to the idea of Mitchell Parker as a high leverage late inning reliever. Today was a step backward in that direction. I know that relievers have bad outings. I don't want to blow this one up too much. I don't even know if Butera should have yanked him earlier. I honestly, just sometimes the reliever on the mound just doesn't get the job done. And it was a real shame. And I'm going to be very interested to see the next 2 or 3 times that Parker is used, where and when, to find out how much confidence Butera has in him.
Yeah, look, Mitchell's been awesome for us. The second inning went out there, didn't have the stuff he's had before, didn't execute.
Nats relief pitching lately had been better. We had talked about that, but the relief pitching in this game, specifically Parker, not good. And, the troubling thing with the Nats pitching staff overall, and here we're talking both starting pitching and relief pitching, and with this team this season, it kind of all blends together anyway with the usage of the opener strategy. But as we're recording this, the Nats have allowed the most home runs in the majors, 59. And the Nats have the second worst strikeouts per 9 innings in the majors, a mere 7.53. That is a bad combination, a pitching staff that gives up a bunch of homers and that doesn't strike guys out. That, one is bad enough. If you have both things happening, man, it's tough to win. In a lot of ways, it is a minor miracle that the Nats are only 2 games below 500. Again, it goes back to the offense being so good, but a pitching staff that has given up the most homers in the majors, a pitching staff that has the second worst strikeouts per 9 innings in the majors, and yet the ball club is just 2 games below 500. Thank goodness for this Nats offense.
I do have to say one thing I want to pass along. I was listening to Marlins radio early on, and they'd made note that when Littell took the mound, and I don't know if this is organizational wide, they couldn't believe that Littell calls his own pitches and has control of the pitch comm when his ERA is in the 7s.
He came in with a 7.27 earned run average, 1 win and 4 losses, but I can see what his problem is right now, Jack. He's calling his own pitches.
Let somebody else do it. 1-0 from Littell.
How are you able to call your own pitches and you're 1-4 with a 7 ERA? You've walked 12, you only got 17 strikeouts. What in the world is going on?
I thought that was a very interesting perspective from outside the organization. You just named some numbers right there that are totally unacceptable. Basically giving up the most home runs and never striking people out, which is everything against Paul Taboni. It has to be. So that has to be a point of emphasis moving forward. And maybe there should be some adjustments as to how pitches are called in the middle of these games.
We are waiting on Zack Littell to be better, and it's not happening. And, I do anticipate the Nats to continue to work with him and to try to get something out of him. And, the recent improvement of Miles Mikolas perhaps is reason for optimism here, although we're talking about a different person here in Littell. But the numbers are gory. 8 games, including 5 starts, ERA of 6.94, whip of 160. And the thing that I brought up a little bit ago continues to be a thing. He has nearly as many home runs allowed as he has strikeouts, which is mind-boggling in today's MLB. Littell has allowed 14 homers. Littell has recorded a mere 17 strikeouts. That is unbelievable that a pitcher, again, in modern MLB, okay, we're not talking about 1940. We're talking about 2026. 14 home runs allowed, 17 strikeouts. He had 0 strikeouts in this game on Saturday. You know, you talk about that bad combo, giving up a lot of homers, not striking guys out. The flag waver of that phenomenon for this Nats pitching staff is Zack Littell.
Yeah, I mean, those stats are so grisly right there. And I really hope that the Nats, as the season goes on, and I'm aware that he got what is in Nats world a lot of money, $7+ million. But I would love if there's a way to get him out of the rotation. Do we call it a starting rotation anymore? What do we call it in the Paul Taboni era? These bulk pitchers, bulk starters. What am I supposed to say, Al? I'm confused. What's the terminology?
Yeah, I would say pitching staff. I think it's as simple as that. Pitching staff or outgetters. An army of outgetters. Maybe that's the way to look at it.
All right, outgetters, and they got to combine for 27 outs. So there's no more rotation anymore? Is that what you're telling me? I mean, I don't know. Richard Lovelady started the game on a Saturday afternoon on Mother's Day weekend.
Well, you know, it's funny. With the quarter mark reached, essentially 40 games into the 162, you can do the simple thing of just multiplying everything by 4. So, like, if you look at the Nats leaders in games started, PJ Poulin is at 5. If this keeps up, Poulin will make 20 starts. As a relief pitcher, he will make 20 starts. Like, you think about that, that's pretty wild. Like, we're not used to that kind of thing with this team. I think it's a good thing. I love that the Nats are employing the opener strategy and trying different things and, you know, accepting the fact that it is 2026. But yeah, it is a new way, certainly if you're used to the old way of the Nats doing things. So, you know, it's a very much a conflicting sort of emotional situation here because I think if you're a Nats fan, there's a lot to like right now. But you look at it and you're like, man, this team could be even better. And if just a few things were a little bit better, like if the pitching staff was a little bit better, if the defense was a little bit better, if there weren't so many bad outs being made on the base paths, what would the record look like? You know, like we would be talking about not just a 500 team, but a team perhaps multiple games above 500. And, you know, off the offense having cooled off, you know, you look at the recent run totals, 15, 7, 3, now 7. You know, the offense maybe is picking back up here. And overall, like we said, doing good work. But the Nats do end up losing.
Lovelady to Stowers and a swing and a line drive, a base hit into right center field. Out to chase it deep in the gap. Wood cuts it off. Runner heading for third. Stowers heading for second. They're going to try and score the runner. Nunez the throw to the plate. He is out and the inning is over. Don't run on the arm of Nasim Nunez. They did and they paid. And they should know better. They drafted Nasim Nunez. What a peg on the relay from James Wood to Nunez.
Game 3 of this series, Sunday afternoon, 12:15, a Peacock game, although the game will be airing on NBC Sports Network. So if you don't have Peacock, you still have a means of watching the game, but the game will not be airing on Nationals.tv. The pitching matchup, Cade Cavalli versus Sandy Alcantara. Now, Alcantara, this is not peak Sandy Alcantara. And Cavalli, you know, we know how he has been up and down, but when he has been up, he has been really good. And the Marlins are pesky. That is true. But I do like this matchup for Cavalli, and I kind of feel like he's going to come out and pitch a good game on Sunday afternoon. We'll see. I don't want to jinx anything, but this strikes me as the kind of team and the kind of lineup against which we can see the best of Cade Cavalli. So we'll see.
We've seen a pattern so far where they don't announce the opener the day before. We find out when the lineup card comes out. Cade Cavalli, I am 99% sure as I say this, has not had an opener thus far, has not had the PJ Poulin treatment. I ask you, Al, like, are we definite that right now at this point, all Cade Cavalli starts are actual starts? Or is there going to be a day where we're going to find out because of this lineup and lefty-righty that Cavalli doesn't take them out until the second or third inning?
I'd be surprised if we see an opener used for Cavalli. I think he's viewed as their best starting pitcher, certainly in terms of stuff. I mean, the best starting pitcher in terms of results has been Foster Griffin. I think the opener is something you more use for the Zack Littells of the world, the Miles Michaelises of the world, the Jake Irvins of the world. Now, if Cavalli struggles, all bets are off. So you sort of have to earn the status of not having an opener used in your turn in the rotation. As things stand right now, I don't think we'll see an opener for Cavalli, but I wouldn't dismiss the possibility entirely. I've had this thought. What if this administration, in terms of Nats baseball ops, had peak Max Scherzer and Taboni and Butera went to Scherzer and were like, hey, Max, today we're going to use an opener for you, pal. Okay. What would Max's reaction have been to that?
You bring up a great point. That's going to be a thing. Has Skeens ever had an opener? Are there any big dogs, young aces, that get the opener treatment?
Not really, no. Because if you're that good, you don't need one. It's basically to mitigate the first inning, which historically speaking is the highest scoring inning. And we're seeing that with the Nats this year, how potent an offense can be in the first innings of games. But yeah, if you're good, you are not someone for whom the opener strategy is a requirement. So at least for now, I think Cavalli is exempt from that. But things could change. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Cavalli on Mother's Day afternoon, and hopefully we get a good outing from him. All right, you have deep ties to the Atlanta area, and man, it has been some recent run here in terms of the Atlanta Braves. And when you talk about people dying, John Sterling passed away. John Sterling is best known as the radio voice of the Yankees for decades, but he also was a broadcaster for the Atlanta Braves for years, so he passed away. The longtime owner of the Braves, Ted Turner, passed away recently. And we on Saturday learned that the greatest manager in Braves history, certainly modern history anyway, Bobby Cox passed away, a member of the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Bobby Cox dying at the age of 84.
Yeah, Bobby Cox, he was the manager for the Braves my entire childhood. When I first saw Bobby Cox, that was the first baseball team I ever followed, the early 90s Braves. And he was the manager all the way through. His last game, Al, I was watching the end of it in my crummy studio apartment in Adams Morgan. Bobby Cox was in my life for a very long time. My dad and I went to his induction ceremony at Cooperstown because also that weekend, Tom Glavine and Greg Maddux were enshrined. So sort of if you're ever going to go as a Braves fan, this is the one to go to. Bobby Cox, with him, great stat. He had the most ejections of any manager. You'll probably hear that stat a lot. It's not because he was a hothead. It's not like he was a Lou Piniella type. It's because he defended his players and he would take bullets for his guys. One of the things I've learned about Bobby Cox is why he was such a good manager and why they won 14 straight division titles and all that was because he was really good at dealing with players and treating them like people. He was sort of like the best supervisor at a corporation, if you will. He was the best middle manager, people's manager. He treated the players like real human beings, and that translated to results April through September. Now, October, a little bit different. I'm going to address the thing that bothered me the most about Bobby Cox. He had some personal issues. I'll keep this to the field. But I did not think he was a great in-game postseason manager. He would burn players a lot. He loved pinch runners. He was obsessed with lefty versus righty matchups. And often the Braves would end up having to use a pitcher in the 9th or 10th inning as a pinch hitter. But overall, Bobby Cox, humongous part of my life, huge part of Braves culture. There's already a statue of him outside the stadium in Atlanta. I'm sure there'll be something else to him along with this.
So Bobby Cox, actually 2 stints as Atlanta Braves manager, 1978 through 1981. He then was the Toronto Blue Jays manager, 1982 through 1985. And then the second stint with the Braves, 1990 through 2010. I actually think it's always been an interesting debate. Which team was the team of the 1990s in MLB? You could certainly make the case for the New York Yankees, right? World Series titles in 1996, 1998, and 1999. But you had what the Braves did, winning all of those divisions and National League pennants in that decade of the 1990s. And, historically speaking, if you're just going by all-time managers' regular season wins, number 1, Connie Mack, number 2, Tony La Russa, number 3, John McGraw, number 4, Bobby Cox. I mean, he's number 4 in MLB history in regular season wins for managers. So a tremendous career. And, let's hope the death stops. I mentioned Sterling, Turner, and Cox. Don't forget Davey Lopes passed away a few weeks ago, too. So just way too much death in MLB here recently.
It's really bizarre that Bobby Cox and Ted Turner passed away in the same week because they're associated with one another. Obviously very different statures in business. But Bobby Cox was the face of TBS, Atlanta Braves, and TBS and the Braves and the Superstation. That was the vision of Ted Turner. I'm a big fan of Ted Turner. I know a lot of people have issues with him. He changed the world, and I stand on 2 feet as I say that. I highly recommend the documentary on him on HBO. He tried to solve the Cold War with the Goodwill Games. He gave the UN $1 billion, on top of everything else. There's no one else like him in the history of the world. And it is, I think, poetic that Cox and Turner would go out at the same time.
This episode of Nats Chat brought to us by the DC Gray's annual fundraiser, Cigars and Curveballs, Monday, May 18th at Shelley's Back Room in downtown Washington, D.C. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We have a website you could check out too, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. Nats Chat is on the radio Sunday morning 9 to 10 on ESPN Richmond, which is 106.1 FM in the Richmond, Virginia area, and Sunday morning 9 to 10 on ESPN Radio 94.1 in the Virginia Beach area. For Tim Shovers, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Jung kicks, delivers. Breaking ball hit in the air to right center field. This is way back. This is going, and gone. Goodbye. 6 rows into the upper deck. In right center field, a titanic home run for James Wood to lead off this game.